Guten Morgen und willkommen zurück zur Tourismus Namibia Live-Übertragung, die wir sonst immer wöchentlich hatten. Letzte Woche haben wir das einmal überschlagen, ganz einfach, weil wir einen Covid-19-Vorfall in der Firma hatten. Da war es einfach besser, erstmal alles abzuschließen und sicherzustellen, dass die Leute auch wirklich nicht alle infiziert sind. Gott sei Dank ist es auch so, dass wir alle gut wegkamen. Also denke ich, ist wichtig, dass man eben diese Prozedur an Ort und Stelle hat und sich dann auch daran hält. Also insofern gute Nachricht. Wir haben zwar ein, zwei Fälle, die erkrankt sind, aber die sind alle eigentlich ziemlich gut dran. Das am Rande. Mein Name ist Frank Steffen. Wie gesagt, ich bin der Redakteur von der Allgemeinen Zeitung und eben auch dem Tourismus-Magazin, das jeden Monat rauskommt. Ja, und dies hier wird jetzt wieder interessant. Langsam öffnen sich wohl doch die Türen, aber bevor wir jetzt soweit sind, gucken wir mal schnell, was an Werbung im Haus ist. Covid-19 natürlich beschäftigt uns alle ja, man möchte nicht der Sache vorauseilen, aber ich bin doch irgendwo ein bisschen froh, dass wir kleine Schritte unternehmen. Kleine Schritte insofern, dass in der vergangenen Woche jetzt eben angekündigt wurde, dass Hosea-Kutako-Flughafen zum ersten Mal wieder geöffnet wird für Einreisen. Was heißt zum ersten Mal? Also Leute, die nach Hause wollten, durften ja immer schon doch noch hierher und auch andersrum, wenn eben hauptsächlich deutsche Besucher hier noch waren, die zurück nach Deutschland wollten, dann ging das auch. Also die Ein- und Ausreise in dem Sinne war schon limitiert erlaubt. Aber was jetzt eben langsam kommt, ist unser Ministerium für Umwelt, Forstwirtschaft und Tourismus. Die haben sich jetzt soweit mit dem Gesundheitsministerium geeinigt und einigen anderen Ministerien, die eben damit tangieren, dass sie eben jetzt den Hosea-Kutako Flughafen ab September wieder öffnen wollen. Und da geht es wohl darum, dass die paar ausgesuchte Länder eben ihre Besucher hierher schicken dürfen. Da ist natürlich die Prozedur, dass man eben drüben erst einmal einen negativen Test vorweisen muss, bevor man das Flugzeug besteigen darf. Des Weiteren ist es dann wiederum so, dass man in Namibia angekommen erstmal für 7 Tage an Ort und Stelle bleiben muss und dann wird man nochmal eben getestet. Das sind alles Sachen, die natürlich sein müssen und ja, wenn Sie vielleicht später reinhören oder also die ganze Show beobachten, werden Sie sehen, haben wir ein Interview diesmal mit Romeo Muyunda also Umweltministerium, er ist der Pressesprecher da. Und da sagte ich zum Beispiel zu ihm, warum geht man eigentlich nicht hin und nur für eine limitierte Zeit jetzt und verändert meinetwegen so etwas wie Etosha einfach mal in eine Isolationsstation. Also was immer man sich einfallen lässt, scheinbar gibt es solche ähnlichen Gespräche, also hoffe ich schon, dass wir so ein klein wenig und Stück für Stück wieder die Grenzen offen haben. Das Hosea-Kutako ist wohl ein Versuch erstmal und auf Dauer will man das eben als den Standardablauf an allen Grenzen einführen. Das ist Hosea-Kutako. Dann haben wir in dieser Woche in der Republikaner hatten wir einen ganz interessanten Artikel, fand ich zumindest. Die haben über den sogenannten Bottlenose Dolphin gesprochen oder geschrieben. Ich finde das insofern ganz interessant, weil man eben das ist ja unser typischer Delfin, wie wir ihn kennen, großer Tümmler. Die sind unten an der Küste damit beschäftigt, der Universität in Stellenbosch zu helfen und auch anderen Universitäten, die sich eben mit diesen Tümmlern befassen. Und dabei geht es darum, dass wir da 204 einzigartige akustische Vorkommen gemessen haben und verzeichnet haben. Davon sind 53 einzigartig. Also es geht da um die Forschung und man versucht eben ein bisschen mehr über diese Tiere herauszufinden. Und ich finde das wirklich bewundernswert. Wir haben da dieses Namibian Dolphin Project, also die helfen da mit bei und ich finde das allerhand, dass wir da doch eben beitragen können und dass wir eben ein bisschen weltoffener in der Hinsicht sind, denn auch abgesehen von Covid geht es ja trotzdem irgendwo weiter in unserem Land. Ja, und damit sind wir schon beim nächsten Thema, das vielleicht nicht unbedingt so tourismusbezogen ist, aber ich finde es einfach mal interessant. Sie werden gelesen haben oder vielleicht das irgendwo gehört haben. Dr. Jacob van Zyl oder Japi van Zyl, wie er gerne genannt wurde, ist in dieser Woche verstorben. Gebürtiger Namibia, oben aus der Gegend von Ucho und Opuwo aufgewachsen. Ich kannte seinen Vater damals da oben und sehr interessant. Ich war dann mal an der DOSW, also Delta-Oberschule Windhoek, und da hat er einen Vortrag auf Einladung der amerikanischen Botschaft gehalten gehabt. Hochinteressanter Mann, es war eine laufende Bibliothek und hat vor allen Dingen wahnsinnig gut auf Kinder reagiert. Also der konnte die stundenlang da beschäftigen mit seinen Vorträgen. Und was er uns dann da erzählte, ist, dass er als Wissenschaftler bei NASA, er war bei dem Jet Propulsion Center von NASA in Pasadena, Kalifornien, da war er beschäftigt und als Wissenschaftler durfte er dann auch hin und wieder mal irgendwelchen neuen Errungenschaften bzw. Entdeckungen durfte er einen Namen geben. Und deswegen sehen Sie da in dem Foto zum Beispiel Gobabeb und dann Naukluft-Plateau. Also das sind Namen, die er geben durfte. Und ich finde das einzigartig. Das ist ein Mensch, der hier aus Namibia kam, in Amerika 33 Jahre lang für NASA gearbeitet hat und im Prinzip Namibia irgendwie so ein bisschen mit auf die Karte des Mars gestellt hat. Denn das hier sind alles Entdeckungen auf dem Mars. Er war immer sehr dabei betroffen. Hier dieses Ding habe ich rausgesucht. Das ist von einer Internetseite, die nennt sich We Name the Stars, .inkleby. Und da, wo das A zu finden ist, das ist das sogenannte Okavango-Tal, Okavango Valley. Also, und finde ich das allerhand, dass ein Mensch wie Japi van Zyl da eben sich so sehr für Namibia eingesetzt hat, einfach noch zurückgedacht hat an sein Zuhause. Das hier war, wie gesagt, in der DOSW, wo ich den Mann dann mal kennenlernte, also hochinteressant und ja, mal was ganz anderes. Also schön, dass wir als Namibia doch irgendwo in der Welt auch so ein bisschen einen kleinen Beitrag leisten dürfen und es auch vor allen Dingen tun in der Form von Leuten wie Dr. Japi van Zyl. Ja, und das bringt uns schon zum Ende der Topics dieser Woche. Bevor wir jetzt weitermachen mit den Destinations Namibia, gucken wir nochmal schnell rein, was wir an Werbung für Sie haben. Welcome back. As you can see, Chloe Deer is back in the studio with us. Welcome, Chloe.
Thank you, Frank.
This is actually quite funny, this being the first show for a while now, to suddenly be back and suddenly you realize you've actually missed this, because it's not as if we are all professional presenters, but somehow it's always nice to sort of show these destinations and introduce people to new sites. And I suddenly found myself for the first time actually missing it. It's quite funny.
No, it is fun because it almost feels like you're traveling when you discuss all these memories and things like that.
So yes, Chloe has brought along 3 different destination ideas again, obviously still relating to the time when you did the trip from the Cape up to Namibia.
Yeah, I mean that trip was so full, so we have to like spread them out over weeks to visit, otherwise we'd have an hour-long discussion on one place. But Paternoster is a popular, getaway for Cape Townians because it's not far from Cape Town at all. But the Cape Columbine Lighthouse is inside the Columbine Reserve, and it's actually the last manned lighthouse in South Africa, and it's still manned today. Okay. And I actually met with the lightkeeper who was stationed at Dustin Island and Pelican Point for a while. So there's that connection with Namibia, which is always, wonderful to have that familiarity.
These guys are quite professionally trained.
I mean, this lighthouse was unlike anything I'd seen before. I mean, impeccably kept, but it's on a very windy outcropping and was built after the Columbine shipwreck in 1829. Because it is a treacherous
where
point.
That name comes from, yeah.
Yeah, it is very treacherous. I mean, the seas are. The actual lighthouse was built in 1936, so it's relatively new, which is why it looks so shiny and well kept. Yeah. But still in operation and different from normal lighthouses because it's not cylindrical, it's almost square in shape. So it's altogether a very interesting, but you get the chance to climb the spiral staircase and actually go into the light bulb itself, which is where I am now, and get a very abstract view of Britannia Bay and the Atlantic Ocean which surrounds you. But what's wonderful about this is that the old lightkeepers' homes have been transformed into guest houses, and so you actually have the opportunity to stay at the lighthouse, which I'm not sure if there's any
I wouldn't know of any others.
It's a wonderfully unique way of experiencing it. Obviously, the light would keep you awake until the early hours. That was the lightkeeper, and but it really is quite a stately sculpture, and it's only 5 kilometers from Paternoster itself, deep in the Columbine Reserve, with Titis Bay on the southern side. But there are, which has wonderful camping spots as well. So, I mean, it's remote and a beautiful kind of seashore experience. We did once speak about sea shacks, which is also in the Columbine Nature Reserve.
Exactly, yeah. That was where you sort of looked onto the bay, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so it all just ties into one another. But seeing where we're positioned on set today, I'm colouring to jump into that water as we sit here.
I'll stay here. And then from there you went on to Meisboskerm.
Yeah, I mean, that's an experience rather than a meal. I mean, it's 2 to 3 hours of traditional Boer course, like for lack of a better description, perched just above the high water line on the coast. And you basically have a 12-course meal where you have traditional waterblommetjie breadie and, yeast-baked bread with farm butter and jam.
Over there.
So this was when it was empty. You have to book in advance. I mean, it's the first open-air restaurant that in South Africa.
It looks nice, huh?
And the banquet that they put on is just unbelievable, with Boer music playing and all traditional cook sisters. Like I said, waterblommetjie breadie, but all the seafood is directly from the shore in front of you. And so, owing to its name, Meisbos, the traditional herders would have used Meisbos as they migrated with their flock. And so that's what the entire building is made from. And it kind of disappears into the landscape because that's the bush that surrounds you. But it's an experience that actually, it shouldn't be missed. And it's about 4 kilometers outside of Lambert's Bay en route to Elands Bay. And, booking a table with your whole family and really getting into the
real experience.
I mean, it's actually, these photos aren't doing it justice. They're not actually my photos. These were actually cell phone photos from my whole family who were just snapping away.
Everybody's seeing something that's nice.
Yeah, my grandmother was the funniest. I mean, I think we rolled home at the end of it, but I mean, it was definitely worth it.
It really looks nice, huh?
And worth including, especially in December when it's hot and the sunsets are unbelievable. And I don't know. It's a family-run business, and it works brilliantly, and it's fine dining at its best. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, on the shoreline.
Yeah, just alone seeing the crayfish gets me hungry already. Yeah, and then we're coming back to Namibia, something different for a change.
Yeah, Tourismus Castle has always been something that that I've been drawn to. I think it's because of its kind of eccentric storyline, you know, built in 1909, and it kind of was a love story dream, you know, and it's kind of the last thing you'd expect to find in the middle of the desert is like a pseudo medieval looking castle made of sandstone from the surrounding quarries. But inside of it is what I found so incredible and hadn't seen much footage of before, but it's filled with antiques that from all over the world, which were shipped to Luderitz Harbour and then transported by 300 kilometers by ox wagon to make this, you know, this dream come to life of this fortress.
I'm just glad to see, these are new photos, so somebody's somewhere along the line pulled the handbrake and said, guys, we've got to get this in order, because I remember that in the 90s I went there, and I couldn't believe how much had been stolen, how much had been removed. So if I don't know, is it part of NWR now?
Yeah, it's still NWR.
And so I'm glad that they've actually made a first move to get the stuff in order again. I don't know about, surely you can't revive everything. Surely not.
For the most part, the furniture looked well oiled and well kept. I mean, you have 19th century antiques in there, which I certainly...
But that is an important part to me, because way back it wasn't in good shape anymore. I mean, the rooms you could hardly use and so on.
Yeah, and they've actually redone the courtyard of rooms which you're able to stay in and really get a sense of living this kind of otherworldly life. It was originally a stud farm. They built it and had studs, thoroughbreds from Australia and England, and there's that story that, you know, those are the lost wild horses, which, you know, has been debated here and there. But
because you've got two trains of thought. The ones say they come from Duvisip and probably wandered down south, but it's quite far down south, because the others is obviously that they were part of the horses that were left by the Schutztruppe when they were finally using their battles in the south.
I'm of the opinion that it's a mixture of everything.
Probably.
I mean, because it's just, you know, this was abandoned once he died in the Battle of Somme. So
it's actually quite funny. I mean, he comes to Namibia, builds this tremendous place, then marries an American woman. She remains behind, and he goes to fight in Europe. I mean,
my favorite is the legend of how he returned to Europe dressed as a woman in order to, you know, to disguise. Yeah. And, you know, I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, this oak is built, he's built this fortress in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I think he's quite capable and is eccentric enough to do that.
Don't be fooled by it, because I think what we need to realize that in Namibia in those years, there were a couple of guys who did real funny things for us today, which they thought is they're bringing big civilization to Africa. Whether you like it or not, that's an idea that they had in their head. I mean, that's why we've got castles in Windhoek, and that's why you've got all types of things being built out there. I mean, the ghost house, as you go down to Swakopmund, it's a huge house out there where you think, why would you build something like that?
I haven't seen it.
But these guys, they've done it, they did it. And so if you look at Kolmanskop, surely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at those 10-pin bowling alleys they've got there.
I don't think we realize the lifestyle those people lived.
And I mean, it seems as if these guys had money and they did it, and they built and thought this was like for the next 100 years.
And it lasts. I mean, the structures they built are still going strong today, so just shows.
Yeah. Anyway, so thank you for bringing us.
Thank you. Always enjoy
And
coming.
she's been around, so in the next show we'll surely bring you a couple of nice photos. She actually told me that these were some of the best photos ever made. So let's.
I'm very excited to share them.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. See you. welcome. As you can see, we've got a special guest here today. Hi, Romeo.
Hi, Frank.
Romeo Muyunda, he's the Public Relations Officer of the Ministry of Environment, Forestry, and then Tourism, obviously. So welcome in the studio. Let's see what you can tell us a bit. The reason why I invited Romeo is not so much to get into all the nitty-gritty of the politics of what's going on in COVID time. I just wanted to find out a bit more about how this whole thing is working at this point in time. I think many of the people are very impatient about sudden results. Some people believe there's a magic wand to return to some form of normalcy, but this is going to take time. And I suppose you can actually see what the minister does and how much he does.
Yes, COVID-19 took all of us by surprise. It's something that no one in the world was prepared for. And of course, unfortunately, the tourism sector was affected as a result. We have seen people losing their jobs, loss of income, and that has been a serious concern for the ministry. And accordingly, we started to look at how we can possibly revive tourism without actually jeopardizing the health of our people. And consultations started then, and also just looking at what is happening elsewhere in the world. What are they doing? How are they making sure that tourism continues in the presence of COVID? So we have been doing that. I think, of course, like you've said, the minister has been at the forefront. We have been consulting, we have been studying the situation to see what works and what doesn't work. Yeah, but here we are, I think our first try into the opening the country for tourism. It's an initial step, but we want to see how it will go.
Yeah, and it really is only the Hosea Kutako International Airport and none other. That's what the minister said, isn't it?
Yes, the idea is to have people come through only Hosea Kutako International Airport. Also to have them, because we don't want to use the word quarantined. We want to use for them to stay 7 days at the first point, which is the place where they are booked. So they will stay there for 7 days, and a test is going to be conducted there. If it's negative, then they proceed from there to wherever they would want to go in the country, just to enjoy the country.
Yeah. Is there any idea that, I'm just putting an idea out there, I was often wondering, you know, with the situation being what it is, have some of the people actually thought about the possibility of turning Etosha, for example, into an isolation unit all in all, and that way have people going there and coming in and out in a controlled manner, and that, because I think obviously one of the greatest concerns is that people say, but who will spend 7 days in one destination and then still enjoy their holidays? Now, by pure chance, yesterday I spoke to people from the German embassy, and they reckon, yes, there are quite a number of people who actually want to do it. So I think it's obviously not the numbers that we had before, but by the same token, we always know that this needs small steps. So is there any sort of idea in that direction?
The idea for now is that when we are saying that you are going to stay at your first point, we are saying that, for example, you booked in Halali, Etosha. That means the areas around Halali, you can always do activities there. You go around, you go see visit the water holes and come back. But you are not only allowed to proceed beyond that. Let's say, for example, it is on a game farm. You are allowed to do activities on that game farm before you proceed elsewhere in the country. So that is what we are saying, and I think it ties with the idea that you have that we have Etosha as a holding facility. I think that it is the same idea that we are saying that your first point, you can still go out. We are not restricting you to go out within the boundaries your first accommodation.
So that's why you said it's not really quarantine. It's more trying to keep isolated as much as possible, and that way do it.
Yes. So you can still enjoy whatever is offered at that facility where you are. You are not locked indoors, it just needs to be made sure that the provisions of the regulations in terms of preventative measures are in place. And this is what we are also busy engaging with tour operators to know that we need the provisions of the regulations adhered to. And that is why we have also, through this initiative plan, we are also encouraging, or we are also going through a process in which we are going to certify tour operators.
Okay, so that you know they've got their systems in place, and it's a matter of coming in and getting out, because I think that's one of the greatest concerns that many operators had is, I mean, if you now sit there, today 5 leave and another 5 come in, but you've also got another 5 that have been there for a while now. You know, so clearly there must be some form of procedure to make sure that they don't necessarily interact. Otherwise the whole point is lost, is it not?
Yes. So that is the procedures that we are putting in place. Of course, like I've said, we are not working in isolation with this one. We are working with the Ministry of Health, and they are advising us, especially on the health protocols of things. How do we make sure that the safety of others is also observed? So there is also other partners that we are working together with, including the Ministry of the Ministry is International Relations, just to ensure that
the whole
immigration and even the law enforcement agencies, just to ensure that there is adherence. So I think, like I've said, it's an initial step. But of course, we believe it should be a step in the right direction, considering that we get the support that we need. And really, we believe this is going to be good for tourism. There is a task team that was established, spearheaded by the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism. And of course, this task team is still going to look into what is possible for the future. So we are going to study this initial step. And then
it becomes a bit of a schooling exercise.
Yes, and then we continue to see if there is a need to upgrade until perhaps to a time where we can even open the borders safely for tourism.
Because I mean, surely in the long run, the idea is to welcome people back from South Africa, from Botswana, Zambia, wherever they come from.
Yes. So we don't want to rush into it, and then at the end of the day, we have issues in terms of rising numbers. We cannot control the spread of this virus. So we are doing it step by step to see, okay, if this works, then how do we safely upgrade to the next level? So
I'm quite sure you sort of doing this thing piece by piece, bit by bit, while talking to the likes of Han and Finata and Taza and whoever. So they're partners at the table, I suppose.
Yes, the private sector is seriously part of this. Like I've said, we have been doing a lot of consultation, and we even the initial revival strategy. The tourism bodies like Fenata Han has been very part of this. They have come up and given us their suggestions. We have also NTB, which is our marketing arm. They have also been very part of this. So we have really gone extensively in consulting, and of course we also continue to open our doors throughout, so that if there are any more ideas, we can always consider them and see how we go forward.
I suppose the minister sometimes finds themselves between a rock and a hard place, you know, with the rest of the ministries sort of breaking him out and telling him, hey, you need to do this slowly, especially the Ministry of Health. And then on the other hand, you find all the tour operators and tourism activists who say, guys, come on, we need to do this, because everybody's obviously worried about their survival.
Yes, I think tourism, I think maybe most people, especially in the tourism sector, perhaps they felt we are on different sides because for the past few months when tourism was closed, we have seen people, going on demonstrations, handing petitions to the minister for him to open up but we are on their side. Actually, there's nothing that we would want more than to see tourism thrive in this country. But of course, we have also made it clear that for as much as we sympathize with the tourism or the tour operators in this country in terms of the losses they are incurring due to the lack of tourists coming from outside, we would want them to understand that the situation is not as easy as
just opening up.
Yeah, just opening up.
But talking about survival, I mean, the other day, you guys were fortunate enough to get that huge support from Germany in terms of getting the conservancies going. And clearly, outside COVID, there is still activities which you guys are involved with. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that? What is planned at the moment? What are your master plans in terms of getting tourism developed, number one, in the Northeast? I still, and I've put it to the minister before, you remember you were there, I'm one of the big promoters of the idea that we should improve tourism in Ovamboland, in actually all the 4O regions, because I think there's a huge potential in that area for people to simply relax. Yes, there might not be hundreds of elephants every second corner, but there's so much else you can do. And so what have you guys got on your plans to get that sort of whole tourism offer extended and developed?
Well, I think what we have done, first and foremost, is that we Namibia, the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism, its job or its role in tourism is actually to provide an enabling environment. So we have done that through the legislation that we have developed, the policies to ensure that both the tourist and the operator, they get the value for their money or for their time. So also we have developed what we call the the tourism growth strategy. So with that, there are a few ideas there in terms of what type of investment Namibia needs. And of course, like you have said, that the northern parts of the country is one of those investments that people can really make to attract tourists that can just go there and relax. Recently, I don't know if you know about it, there is a lodge that we are building north of Etosha, just outside there. It's not really by the ministry, but it is a conservancy in partnership with a private investor.
We actually have spoken about it.
Yes. So all of that and the idea of conservancies is just to enhance also tourism, especially in communal areas such as the northern parts of the country. So people must really take up these opportunities, and we are working with NTB so that they market the investment opportunities that exist, the investment opportunities that has not been taken up yet. And it's not only in the northern part, the northeast as well, in the Zambezi. There's so much opportunity. There's so much opportunities that hasn't been taken up.
Because that would be nice, wouldn't it? My argument is always, if you look at Etosha, for example, there basically is not a neighboring farm that is not somehow also involved in some form of conservancy and or guest farming and or lodge, whatever it is. And it would be nice if we can extend that sort of around the top as well, where the northern parts start getting involved and also having their little game parks and whatever, and even if it is a hunting farm, yes, surely. I mean, if it works in the south, why shouldn't it work in the north?
Exactly.
It just needs to be controlled and done properly.
Exactly. But also, what I'd like to add is that we really okay, Namibia's tourism, for example, is now based on the things that you have mentioned, which is our wildlife, our landscapes, and to a very little extent, we doing cultural tourism, and I think.
But there is growth.
Yes, but there is a bit of growth, and I think for places like the northern areas, this is the idea that should really sell. People would like to experience the cultural diversity of that area. So I think this is something that we really need to
enhance,
to
really.
enhance, yes.
Yeah, it's my argument always, and after I've said it on the show a couple of times already, you know, why should I pack my car and drive to Kenya to see Maasai?
Exactly.
If I have Ovahimba culture
Ovahimbas.
right in front of us, or for that matter, even going up to right to the north. I remember once entering a village right up in the north nearby Ruakana, and there was this little child coming to me, touching my hair, and then the mom said, sorry, it's the first white man he's ever seen. So it was quite funny.
Yes,
in that
exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
So we should not always think that because Windhoek is pretty much, if we want to say, call it that, a westernized town, we shouldn't think that the whole of Namibia is like that. Many of the Sun people are still like that, and no matter where you go, there's still many people who keep to their traditional ways.
Yeah, I know. You are right. You'll be surprised how many Namibians would want to go out there and see and witness other cultures, but yet we don't even know our own cultures.
Well, that's the thing.
Yes, we don't even know our own cultures. If you ask me, I wouldn't know even how many dialects are there in northern areas.
Yeah.
For example, I wouldn't even know what tribe this person is. So it is really so much discouraging to see that Namibians would really want to go and see other people's cultures without actually knowing our own country. And I
exactly.
think we are trying to really encourage domestic tourism. I've seen even, I've observed even when tourism was still closed, people were advocating to open the borders so that they can go and visit other countries for leisure. And I'm saying,
what have you done around here?
What have you done around here?
Yeah.
So I think these are the kind of things that we are really working on so that we encourage domestic tourism. Apart from that, you have mentioned the conservancies. There is a facility that we have launched back in May, in which we have now attracted more than, I think, 6 million for conservancies just to assist them in
I actually saw that update now. Yeah.
Yes. So we have already given that money to the conservancies for the first quarter, and we are now working on the second quarter so that the conservancies can continue to do their activities. We need them to conserve our wildlife as well as our natural resources. They have been part of the successes that Namibia has recorded in terms of wildlife recoveries. So we really need the conservancies.
And that brings us to the final point, forestry. Obviously a new challenge. Not really a new challenge, a renewed challenge.
Yeah,
it used to be part of yours, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, forestry, we have welcomed forestry. I think we have seen a number of controversies and so on in the past few years with the timber and so on. But of course, we have welcomed forestry to the ministry. We are now working on on policies and so on, so that we make sure that not only should forestry or forestry resources be protected, but also benefit Namibians. So we are working on legislations. I think one of them is to review the Forestry Act. Also to make sure that Namibia's timber industry growth, we have seen a lot of timber being exported in raw material, going outside Namibia. And so recently we have come out, the minister has come out and said, in accordance with the law, that there is not going to be an export of any raw timber from Namibia. And that is what is going on now. We are implementing that. We are trying to really expand our local industry, so that it contributes not only to the economy, but also,
and it becomes controlled, really.
Yes,
that's the main thing.
Yeah, the main thing, we want control in it. There has been so much chaos in it, people doing it illegally. There were concerns also of people, harvesting timber without the environmental impact assessment, some without permits. So it is really just to bring control
and make sure that we've got it in the long run.
Yes,
sustainable
sustainable
development,
utilization, and as well as development. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Romeo, for making time, and hopefully we can repeat this some other time when we talk about the good news that tourism has improved again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Well, that's it from Romeo Muyunda from MEFT. Right, and just remember, we've got the NTE coming up, the Namibia Tourism Expo. It will be from the 4th to the 7th of November. People, it will happen, no matter what. And it is very important that you just remember this thing is going to happen, and we will promote local tourism. We will promote tourism to Namibia. So it's very important. We've got our Tourist of the Year competition sorted. You will remember that last time we showed you who the final candidates are. Now, obviously, with the lockdown, we had to sort of adjust and first find a way in which we can get these people sorted to actually be able to do what we want them to do, and that is to record their live experiences as they go out to the various lodges. But never mind that. That will happen. There's no doubt about it, and when it happens, we will keep you informed. But what is important that you do understand, whether you are a visitor to the NTE, whether you're just somebody who actually takes part in it or visits just for the day, to us the important part is that this year it's about virtual tourism in more ways than one. Not only because we've now suddenly decided on account of COVID-19 that we need to do that, we would have done it anyway. People who were involved with us before the time know that part of the big thing that we wanted to introduce at the NTE this year is that people who've got lodges or any type of guest house or hotels, whatever it is, tours, you name it, these people will actually be able to tell us at the show what they are doing live. So part of it was that we would have had a GoPro at the various lodges, whoever wants to take part, and that the viewer or the visitor to the NTE can actually follow live, see what's happening at that site right there and then. And we will do that no matter what. So if the NTE happens to work out as we hope it to be, in terms of you being able to visit, in terms of us doing what we need to do, bring people together, introduce suppliers to lodges, lodges to suppliers, and vice versa. Once we get that sorted, the rest is just something that will happen. So if COVID does its thing, don't worry, we'll still be there, we'll still do the NTE. So that to us is very important. Please realize that, and please support us in that, because at the end of the day, this is about supporting us so that we can support you. Thank you. Ja, und jetzt haben Sie, wie gesagt, das Interview von Romeo Muyunda gehört. Mir ging es nicht darum, hier politische Argumente mit reinzubringen. Ich wollte gerne, dass er mal von Seiten des Ministeriums einfach erklärt, worum es geht, was bei Ihnen ansteht. Und ich denke, es ist tatsächlich eine sehr schwierige Situation für den Umweltminister, weil er eben, wie gesagt, auf der einen Seite Teil des Kabinetts ist, wo logischerweise auch politische Entschlüsse getroffen werden. Und auf der anderen Seite sitzt man hier mit dem Privatsektor, der die ganze Zeit um Hilfe schreit, verständlich. Aber beides muss irgendwo zusammengeführt werden. Und ich denke, er hat da im Moment einen sehr, sehr schwierigen Stand, den er für mein Verständnis eigentlich relativ gut hantiert. Also komm, wir gucken mal. Viel Glück dem Ministerium und vor allen Dingen hoffe ich letztendlich für unseren Tourismus, dass doch eben sich schnell da was bewegt. Es so langsam scheint es ja in Gang zu kommen. So, und dann habe ich zuletzt als Bild der Woche, habe ich Ihnen ein anderes Bild mal rausgesucht. Das ist jetzt kein Bild von einem Leser, sondern einfach aus unserem Archiv. Und warum ich das gerne mal bringen wollte als Bild der Woche war, das hier ist ein lebendes Museum. Also, was heißt Museum? Ich finde immer, dieses Wort Museum trifft da nicht ganz zu. Das hier sind San oben bei Zumkwe, die wirklich noch traditionell leben. Natürlich vorleben, das ist ein Kulturdorf, das sie da oben haben. Aber trotzdem, ich finde es immer bewundernswert, wenn die wenigstens etwas tun, wo sie zeigen, wie sie leben. Und da komme ich zu meinem uralten Argument und immer wieder zurück zu dem Punkt, wir haben so viel in Namibia, was wir noch zeigen können. Man braucht nicht immer die Ovahimba sein, können die San sein, können auch andere Leute sein. Es gibt diese sogenannten Traditional Villages, gibt es übrigens auch in Korichas, die gibt es auch oben in Ondangwa, die gibt es überall in unserem Land. Und das sind alles Sachen, die man vielleicht doch mal besuchen sollte. Ich denke, gerade jetzt, wo dieses Local ist lecker und also wo man den Lokaltourismus so ein bisschen fördert, ich finde, das sind die idealen Zeiten, wo wir alle dahin sollten und uns das mal angucken sollten, ein besseres Verständnis schaffen. Und vielleicht mal sehen, was die Probleme sind, die diese Leute haben. Denn wir glauben ja immer nur, wir hätten Probleme. Und vielleicht kann man die auf die Art ein bisschen unterstützen. Ja, das sind wie gesagt die San oben im Norden. Mal was anderes, ein anderes Bild der Woche. Und somit sind wir am Ende unserer Live-Übertragung dieser Woche. Ich hoffe, Sie hatten ein bisschen Spaß dran, hoffentlich auch ein bisschen Nachrichtenwert. Und vielen Dank, dass Sie sich eingeschaltet haben. Und dann sehen wir uns wieder in der kommenden Woche. Vielen Dank. Tschüss.